I firmly believe if you think you can or if you think you can't, you're probably right. The world is built by normal people who just had the audacity to go and build this building, or to make a decision that a stop sign deserves to be on that part of the street, or some big institution like Harvard should exist and we should all buy into the rules that it's created. It was created by just an audacious person who likely wasn't significantly dumber or smarter than you, but they were significantly bolder.
Welcome to the next episode of the Entrepreneurial Excellence Podcast. It is with a ton of pleasure and just excitement to have my buddy Sam Parr on this. It's been a long time since he and I caught up, but he is a man who doesn't need probably a lot of introduction in general. A multi-time founder. We need to talk through that. I think I saw like 8 semi-successful ones just on LinkedIn. And I'm sure there's probably a dozen more that aren't even listed there. And Sam was like, dude, let's just get it started recording, because we were just starting shooting the shit. And it's like, let's just get started. So we were talking about like San Francisco versus Texas versus New York. And let's just jump in there real quick and then we'll get into the other questions.
Yes, I think you should. I think no podcasts, like the second you start banter at all, you just hit record. And if you don't like it, just cut it. But you should always get it on the record. Yeah, I lived in San Francisco for close to 10 years. I lived in Austin for 4 years, and now I'm living in Westport, Connecticut. I don't miss Austin, but I miss like the 20 people. I think the 20 people who I was close with, like they're my family, so I miss them dearly. But I live now close enough to New York City that I go there a couple times a week. I love New York City. I think San Francisco, though, is the best still. I think if you're 22 years old and you want to get into technology or entrepreneurship, you have to go to San Francisco. I think it's beautiful. I think that the homeless thing is really annoying and almost makes it not worth it, but it's still totally worth it. I think that it's like the mecca of internet nerds, and it's 100% the place to be. Like, if I only live where I live for family reasons. If I had any family within 2 hours of SF, I would have owned a home there a long time ago.
That is, I mean, you and I are very much in the same boat. That is literally actually the advice that someone gave me 15 years ago today. They were like, look, if you want to be in politics, go to DC. If you want to be in finance, go to New York. If you want to be in media, go to LA. If you want to be in tech, just go to SF. Test yourself against the best people. And that was 15 years ago for me. I'm lucky enough, my family, my brother and his wife and their family live 5 minutes away up the hill from me. And this is the place to be. Everything's here and the weather's great. And like, I bike everywhere. And yeah, I'm in agreement with you and bias, of course, too, at this point. But
I think San Francisco is also a lot nicer than when I lived there. I think that I haven't been there in a minute, but it appears as though there's been a shift in the last 5 years for the better.
I think that's true. There's a lot of negativity around it because we're like really easy to like kick because we do a lot of stupid things here. But I agree. Like, there's just so many good restaurants. The food's great. Everything's around. Like, I'm like literally my bike ride to go to my meeting that I have to go to after this. I'm gonna bike along the waterfront. Like, literally, what a commute! I'm biking along the bay, seeing these beautiful bridges in sun, in perfect weather, and I'm not gonna get super sweaty despite like wearing heavy clothes. It's ideal. But let's talk about entrepreneurial stuff. So Sam, so question I ask everyone to kick it off. This is called the Entrepreneurial Excellence Podcast. How do you define entrepreneurial excellence? What do you think about like the definition of that term?
I think it means achieving your goals. I think it means starting a business or a company and being a boss that employs other people and setting out goals and achieving them. I think it means being happy as well. I think that if you're an unhappy business owner, you're a failure. So that's what I think.
Yes, although maybe part of that, right? People sort of, I think, mistake happiness with contentment. And what I mean sort of by that, and tell me if this makes sense to you, like there are many moments I'm sure you felt as an entrepreneur where you were unhappy, you were pissed, and you were stressed, but like you also probably wouldn't rather be doing anything else.
Yeah, look, like what I tell my friends who want to get into business is I say, like, just so you know that like maybe 80% of the time, like I'm unhappy in that I'm angry at like something, or I'm like, this could be better and this sucks and we're losing, we're gonna die, we're gonna go out of business. But it's like, it's thrilling and I enjoy it. Like I don't I've been fortunate and I don't have to be doing this, and it's all I want to do. So I enjoy it. I think that entrepreneurship It's the most practical way to manifest dreams. I think that in a capitalistic society, which we live in, and it will never go away, regardless if you want it to go away or not, it's going to be here for at least our lifetime. And if that is true, then entrepreneurship is the most straightforward way to turn visions into reality.
Mm-hmm. I love that definition. I completely agree. Do you agree with the statement too, that being an entrepreneur is also the greatest way to kind of push yourself in your own boundaries? So like saying like, I'm going to push myself, try new things, because you're always learning. Every day there's something different that comes up.
I don't think it's the best way. I think that like being a parent's pretty wild. I think that I don't think that an entrepreneur is intrinsically any better than like a really good teacher or a really good police officer or like a public servant, or I don't necessarily put more weight on it than any other people, but I do think that it's a really easy way to make your soul feel good. I think controlling your own destiny, once you learn how to do that, it's as if you lived a life with blurry vision and you finally put in eye contacts. You could finally see clearly.
Because you now are in control and essentially of your own destiny. Like you are in charge of the choices you're making versus letting other people make choices that impact you.
Yeah. I think once you're able to like dictate the future of yourself, you feel untouchable. And I think that's an intoxicating feeling that I love.
Yeah, I agree. So on the note of what you love, how many companies have you actually started? Once again, like I counted 8 on LinkedIn, and I think there's probably maybe a dozen other failures that aren't listed.
I think there's a difference between a company and a business. So I've started lots of businesses. I have probably started 7 businesses or 8 businesses that I've done at least $1 million in revenue, like a year. 2 or 3 of them did tens of millions. And those are so I only have like 2 so far real companies that are in like the 8-figure, like tens of millions in revenue. And they have like employees and a team that like it doesn't rely just on me. And then I've started a whole bunch of stuff that like by myself, I got to like a million or more, but not much more in annual revenue. So it started with like a silly online liquor store I had in college, and then a roommate matching business that did only hundreds of thousands, and then a conference business that did millions, a newsletter that did tens of millions, a paid newsletter that did many millions. Hampton is a big business, and then I have got a few other things that I'm involved in, but I started, but I don't operate.
How do you like, what's the advice you would give to people for like starting these businesses? Like, what do you think your secret is? Most people never start one business that makes $1 million, and you've now started many. What is your difference for you? With learning?
I've had a hot dog stand too. I forgot about that one. I think that, look, I'm lucky that I'm born in the internet era, because with the internet, it's like so easy to make products and services that people like and that you can collect money for, and you could do it within days. And I think there's a lot of, particularly in Silicon Valley, there's a type of entrepreneurship of raising lots of money and building a product over years and then finally releasing it. And something like that definitely works. There are times when, like, if you're SpaceX or one of these other really big companies, it's really hard to like throw it together, and like that doesn't work that way. But there's a lot of other ideas or style of businesses that fit my skill set that I can like throw together and go and pre-sell or get sales when it's a very raw MVP. And if there was an award that you could get for the fastest person to build a $1 million or a $200,000 a year business, I would win that award. Now, I'm trying to be in contention for creating companies that could do hundreds of millions in revenue, which I'm still climbing that mountain. But I'm really good at creating like 6 and 7 figure small things. And the reason I'm good at it is I know how to move really, really, really fast. I know how to be a good copywriter, because early for MVPs, copywriting is one of the most important things. And I don't have too much fear of looking stupid.
So do you think that those are some of the key things for people? Is like, you just have to be like, I have no fear. Essentially, not looking stupid is mean I have no fear. I have a thick skin.
Well, you can have fear, but you're like, I'm going to do this anyway.
Yeah. And is it just saying like I fear, but like I might fail and it's okay? Is that what it is?
Exactly. Yes. And I was always good at that, because I basically I look at entrepreneurship very spiritually, because the reason I do is like it's a very emotional thing. Like you're fearful all the time and you're pushing yourself all the time, that you kind of like need to find religion or spirituality, something to like kind of cope. And my whole thing was like, I would like sit there. I'm like, what's the worst case scenario in my life? Well, in this situation, the likely worst case scenario is that I run out of money. Okay, so if I run out of money, am I comfortable asking my mom and dad to live at their home? Like, yeah, that's a fine worst case scenario. Okay, so I'm just going to ask them now. Is it okay if I move in with you, and I will save money for my plane ticket home? And then I'm like, all right, anything above this is fine. And I'm like, all right, the the worst case scenario, I've accepted it and I'm happy with it and I am ready to roll. So now let's just get after it. And so like I've always done that, where I try to make a lot of things to where if I win, I'm going to win big. And if I lose, I'm not going to lose much. So I try to like protect the downside a lot.
Yeah, totally. And I think protecting the downside, maybe also it sounds like imagining the downside, right? Imagining like what is really the worst, because people don't do that. People don't really project ahead. They don't do like a pre-mortem almost.
I do what's called negative visualization.
Okay.
So I do this exercise all the time. And a lot of times I'll do it with my family. So I'll say, my daughter has terminal cancer. She's dying in my arms. My wife has died yesterday. Like I had my legs cut off and I have no money and I'm sitting here holding my dying daughter. And I sit there for 5 minutes and I really imagine this stuff, and you start to feel it. And then you open your eyes and you say, none of that is true. How wonderful is life? And it makes me feel thankful every day. Like I'm like, aren't we lucky to be experiencing this? And then I'll do it with business all the time, where I'll close my eyes and I'm like, I'm getting sued. I've run out of money. Everyone has quit. People online are calling me like a loser. Like, I've let down my customers, my investors, and you sit and you literally sit for 5 minutes quietly and just like soak in that. And then you open your eyes and you're like, that's not true. Let's get after it. And that's like a really exciting feeling. I do it all the time.
Did you do that when you were younger too? Or is that something you trained yourself over time?
I learned about it in my early 20s. I've been doing it since my early 20s. It's like a stoic exercise called negative visualization. I read a book about it and it like kind of was pretty wild.
And it just unlocked you to be able to say, okay, like nothing's really that bad. Having a high level of gratefulness, it sounds like too.
Yeah, it legitimately changes my mood. Like have you ever been like, here's like a really practical example. Have you ever had like a super bad sore throat and you're like, I don't like if you get a really bad sore throat, I remember having them and I'd be like, or you have like a toothache and you're like, I don't remember what it felt like to not hurt. Like, you're like, oh, I miss that feeling of being able to swallow without pain. Oh my God. And then I remember like having that and I'm like, I'm going to embrace every day that I don't have this sore throat.
It's a great example. And yes, it's totally true. I mean, like I actually had an example for me was I actually had major back pain. I ended up having actually back surgery. But for me, like it was, and I know people never want to get back surgery. I tried to avoid it forever. But the lesson I learned there was like, oh my God, like this gave me so much context for how bad it can be. And for people who are disabled and have real situations where like they have to, it's really tough. In that context, and now I hold on to that. I'm like, I'm grateful every day that I feel healthy and can walk everywhere I need to or bike where I need to and get all these places. Like just even that lesson learned there.
The cool thing about San Francisco is that most all of my friends were immigrants, and some of them were poor immigrants. And when you meet a poor immigrant and they're like getting after it and they're like doing shit and you're like, that's insane. Because they know what's on the other side. They're fortunate to be here and all this. And I think that had rubbed off on me a lot.
Yeah, it's actually a really good point. I think about the entrepreneurial community in the first place is so many of the most successful ones are immigrants. I think largely because they had to work harder in different ways and had to achieve things that like they didn't even have that backup. There was no mom and dad's house to go back to.
Yeah, I know this guy. I have a friend named Mario who started this healthcare company, and he's from Germany. He started this thing called Oscar, which is this publicly traded like huge thing. And he was talking to me, and he forgot like an English word or something as he was explaining like the American health insurance and teaching me about it. And I'm like, dude, you don't even you're not even from America. Like, and you know all this crap. You don't even speak English. What the hell, man? Like, that's like insane. And I was like thinking, I'm like, imagine me going to Germany and trying to like master your health insurance business. Like, this is impossible. That's amazing. And if you could do that, surely I can do this other thing.
So what are I mean, is it the takeaways for you? Like, let's say starting these businesses, like how deep do you go? Or you're just like, this isn't working. I can't find a solution. So screw it. I'm going to go build it myself. Like what is the thought process when you're like, I'm going to go create a new business and just,
I'm a big fan of this exercise called, or like this idea of an ikigai. Do you know what ikigai means?
Yes.
It's this Japanese way of life. And it's basically like, imagine a Venn diagram. And in one circle, it's what does the world want? Another one says, what does the world want to pay for? Another one says, what are you skilled at? And what are you passionate at or passionate for? And I really work hard to find things in the middle. And so I usually like, when I want to start something, I have like a list of ideas, but I always try to think like, well, what am I skilled at? Can I actually pull that off? Do people actually want this? Are they willing to pay for it? Like I go through like that exercise. So that's usually what I do. And at this point in my life, the majority of things that I like to get into are back of the envelope math. And it's basically just, do I think this is fun and exciting? Because I've learned that pretty much everything in business, however long you think it's going to take, assume it's going to take a lot longer. And in order to survive for a long period of time, you have to really kind of like enjoy the thing you're doing. And so I try to look for things that are like exciting to me.
Do you have, I mean, for you though, it seems like a lot of your stuff, they're more like 1, 2, 3 year stints at something. And is that just because of the nature of how you've done things, or because you're just like early 0 to 1? Or
well, I would say that it appears that way. That's not exactly true. So it's sort of true, sort of not true. So my big company that I ended up selling for a lot of money, it was called The Hustle. And I started as a conference business in 2014. And I did that for 2 years. And I pivoted the company to become a newsletter. And I did that in 2016. And I sold the company right around 20 or 21. So that was 5 years. The Hustle was 4 or 5 years old, but I had been working on the event for 2 years before that. So it was actually a 7-year journey, something like that. But then during the Hustle, we launched a podcast. So the Hustle owned newsletters, we owned conferences, and we owned podcasts. I hosted one of the podcasts. That's now been 5 years. I've done 700 episodes. And then my latest business, Hampton, is brand new. It's only 2.5 years old, I think. And so my game plan is to own Hampton for decades. So it appears as though it's shorter, but I think that's just because I'm early in my career. But I'm a very good 0 to 1 guy. And I would say I'm not. I usually what I do is I can brute force a company to $1 million in revenue. And then my talent is 0 to 1, and then my talent is hiring. So I find great people and I partner with them. So they'll be more the operational person, and I'll be a little bit of an idea guy and a little bit of like a counselor or whatever, like giving opinions and things like that. And I'm pretty good at being like, all right, well, you'll focus on that. I'll focus on this. Get after it.
So actually, let's go into the hiring part. I want to come back to some copywriting stuff and a few other questions there too, but with hiring, like how do you identify these people who are great and then give them the leeway to go do that? Because I think a lot of founders have trouble delegating, number one, or even letting go. Even if they find somebody they can delegate to, really, really letting go and trusting a person. Like, what is your skill? How do you find the right person and then let go?
The delegating thing, I used to be bad at delegating because I used to think like I would look foolish if I'm not in the trenches with people doing the work. And then I realized that like there's people who like doing that. And like, it's a fair trade. I'm going to give you money. You're going to give me this. And I'm also going to like figure out what motivates you and like what career you want to have. And I'm going to work really hard to provide that for you. That's a really good trade. And once I like kind of understood like that my goal is to provide value to employees. So I got to ask them what's a win for you. And then I'll just work to provide it. I didn't have any problem delegating. I'm not a perfectionist, so I can't empathize with people who are unwilling to be hands-off. If I can work less and make more money, to me, that sounds like a win-win. Like if I can just work 40 hours a week and my employees work 40 hours a week and like we all are happy, then fuck yeah. Like
that is the way it is, being able to like hand things off and work the right amount of hours. But then still like, are there like nitty-gritty things? Like I feel like it's very easy for people to want to keep asking sort of the CEO or the idea person, or you might have so many ideas. Like, we should do this, we should do this, we should.
You can't do that. That's like, so with being a leader, you can't, it's good to, if you can have a one sparring partner within your company. And for me, it's my partner, Joe. We go back and forth, but I don't tell the staff ever all these new ideas. To me, it's focus, focus, focus. Like, just say no to everything. To get it out of my system and brainstorm, I'll have a sparring partner that, like, they know that we're just playing make-believe. They know that we're just fucking around. But like, I used to do this all the time. You do not want to do this with your staff. Just tell them all this shit. Because they're going to, even if you tell them you're brainstorming, they're going to be like, oh, well, Sam said we're going to do this. It's like, you can't spoil the broth. You can't do that. So I don't do that. And you're asking about hiring. My favorite thing is, I call it, it's like stock picking to me. I like finding undervalued people, and I'm a big fan, and you could call me crazy, but I'm a big fan of finding young people and just giving them a ton of responsibility right away and just being like, get after it. Like, here's my expectations of you. Here's, I'll train you, but like, you're only 23, but like, you now run this little, like, for example, I had this company that was doing like $6 million a year, and I found this woman named Steph Smith, and she was 25, didn't have any experience, and I was like, here's the keys, get after it.
What was her skill set with Steph? Like, what did you see in her? Because like, there's lots of young people who are like, yeah, dude, I could go in and crush this, and yet I find there's plenty who also like are not able to step up, or maybe I haven't given them the right leeway to actually really go test them.
I read their writing. So Steph Smith is now an investor, or she works at Andreessen Horowitz, and she could, I think she was 24 even. I don't even remember how old she was, but she had a blog, and it had a great post called, you'll have to Google it if you're listening, but it's called like, to be great, just be good consistently. And I saw this blog and I read it, and then I read a bunch of our other blog posts. And my favorite thing to do is to read people's writing. And if I could read their writing, there's a pretty strong correlation between, if you're a clear writer, you're also a clear thinker. And so I'm a big fan of finding people who have blogs or who tweet a lot, and I'll see their personality via their writing. That's like my number one way to find people.
That's definitely, it's sort of unique and different. Do you then do you like do a whole interview process with people, or is it more just like, hey, I read a ton of things and this is great? Like, how do you test someone out? You're going to give Steph, a 24-year-old, the keys to the kingdom for a $6 million business. It's a lot to trust someone.
I do a lot of background checks. Like, I do, what do they call it?
Reference checks.
Yeah, but I don't do, like, let's say Steph gave me 3 people who she listed as her references. I will go to the 3 people and I'll ask each person, who else did Steph and you work with? And they'll tell me. And then that's who I actually go and care about.
Yeah.
So I do like I forget, what do you call it? Back channeling, maybe?
Yep.
That's what I do. That's my favorite tool, is to do back channeling. And then usually, like, the root of the issue, I say, like, what would you rate this person in terms of effectiveness for their job? 1 out of 10. And they'll always say 7, 8, or 9. Yep. And I'll be like, cool, whatever. But to become a perfect 10, to get those 2 missing points, where does she stink? And if I can handle, like, if it's like, well, she stinks because she moves slow, that's a red flag to me. But if it said, well, she stinks because she is young, or like is sloppy, I'm like, this role doesn't need this role is a move fast and break things type of role. It's okay if you're sloppy. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I can handle that. If there's like certain attributes that I can handle that are negative and certain that I can't.
Do you think the writing part changes at all with AI? Like, with so many people doing sort of AI writing, where you still have to take the time and effort to like use your...
Dude, have you ever... If you can, like, whether you can graduate Harvard through cheating or through being really smart, both are pretty great. So, like, if you can use AI to write well, then that's cool too. Although AI writing sucks. Like, I can read it and be like, this is horrible. But if you can create AI writing that's good, then yeah, you pass.
Legit. Fair point. Where, like, so if you go back in time and think through, like, let's cover it right, finish that in that part. Like, you said, like, copywriting is one of your strengths, right? What are key things with copywriting where you're like, this is what I do really well, or how I do it really well for starting a business? Like, what is you like throw up some description about your business and test it with your friends, like put up a basic website? What is it?
Well, it starts by using, like, I think Amazon does this where they make you write a press release about, like, let's say you have an idea for some product. They make you write the press release before you ever start working on it so you can solidify your idea. And so a lot of times if I have an idea for a product, I'll write the landing page first. Like, I'll describe this. And as you are writing that, it forces you to get specific because you'll have an idea about something and you'll describe it as, it's like this, but it's like Airbnb, but for this. And it's like, all right, well, write that landing page. And like, if you can't like force yourself to, like, a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to like fit within this framework or whatever. Writing forces you to like solidify that idea and to hone in and say and take a stand on what you are and what you aren't. And so whenever I have an idea, I try to like write it on paper because that forces you to definitively say what it is and who you're for and what the value is and what the features and benefits are. So for me, like, I will just use Google Docs and I'll write a landing page. And there's been many times where I will write a landing page and I'll just share it on my Facebook. And I purposely am doing it on Facebook because I got a large audience on Twitter. I won't ever share it on Twitter for a long time. So Hampton, we got to millions and millions in revenue before we ever shared it. I shared it on Facebook though. And I have another company called Rosedale, tryrosedale.com. We shared it on Facebook and it has done really well. And if you go to tryrosedale.com, it's just a plain document looking letter that I wrote.
That's crazy. Do you, I seem like writing it out is different than like building a pitch deck or something for it. Or are they similar?
They're similar, but writing's harder. Pitch decks, I can hide my stupidity in a pitch deck a lot easier. I hate pitch decks. I think decks suck, but writing's a lot harder.
I do too. For my last company, the one you invested in, we had a memo was how we did our pitch raise. We had a memo, we wrote it out, we went through very ton of different versions, all of this stuff for that purpose. It was like, this is just clear. And if we can explain exactly what we're doing, the reasons why in a succinct, clear way, that was a win for us and for everyone buying it. I mean, like, is that also, essentially copyright, it sounds like, is that another definition for like storytelling to you? Is that like?
No, I would say copywriting at its core is getting what's in my brain into your brain. And more often than not, I'm doing it in a persuasive way. So I'm trying to make you feel something. I'm trying to make you think something. I'm trying to get you to do something, to buy whatever I'm selling, to join my company, to go out on a date with me. Like, I'm trying to convince you to do anything. And storytelling is one amazing trick or tool to make you feel or do a certain thing.
And how do you get better at copywriting? Is it just practice?
The number one way is this way called copy work. It's a learning technique that is no longer popular, but it was popular, and it used to be how we taught children how to write. So you find writers or pieces of work, like it could be landing pages. In my case, I did it with Kesher and the Rye. I did it with books. And you take that writing, who you want to sound like or be like, and you get a notebook just like this one right here, and you get a pen and you sit down for 1 hour every day and you word for word copy it by hand.
Wow.
And someone can take me who doesn't know a lick of piano, and if you gave me 1 hour every day and showed me how to play piano, in 3 months I'll be okay at piano. I'll know how to play like a handful of songs. And the reason I will is because what you're going to do is you're going to say, here's how you play Jingle Bells, copy it every day for a while. Then we're going to play like a Green Day song. Then we're going to play like a David Bowie song. And next thing you know, like, you're going to catch all of these like similarities and you're going to see, here's the patterns I like. And you're going to combine it to create your own flavor after some amount of time, which you would never take a newbie like me and be like, hey, you're going to learn how to play piano. Go ahead, write a song. Like, that's like impossible. It's like, no, it's like, just let me copy all these other songs and I'll see the chord structures that sound cool together. And then eventually I'll invent my own. That is how writing should be, in my opinion.
Yeah. So just, it's essentially that practice over and over and over again.
Copying other people. And you're going to notice, wow, Stephen King has super short sentences. Or like, isn't that crazy how like he made me feel a certain way with this phrase? I'm going to steal that phrase. That's a really good phrase. Like things like that. Like you'll catch things like that. Or like, wow, the rhythm of J.D. Salinger is like, he goes he has a short sentence, But then he has a sentence that's just a little bit longer. And finally, he wraps it up by having a sentence that's really long and kind of annoying to read, but it gives it a little bit of extra flow and it makes it a beautiful, beautiful rhythm. Yeah. Like you see these like commonalities. And so eventually you can invent your own.
Yeah, that's actually really a great piece of advice. It's something I think like very few founders actually do. Like even just writing out their stories in general and their copyright for their business, but also just like getting good at that writing expression. In general.
Well, look, there's a reason why like a lot of the great leaders are they used to call them, what do they call them? Orders. Like you look at like Obama. One of the reasons Obama was Obama, whether you like him or not, is because he could speak really well. Like if you can, copywriting is just communicating with an infinite amount of people because it's on paper, like anyone can read it. And so I am and if you go and read like Warren Buffett, one of the richest people on earth, his writing is super good. Like you can read his annual reports, like they're famous, or go and read Jeff Bezos's writing, like it's really good writing. And so writing influences your ability to sell, but it also influences your ability to storytell. It makes it really easy to get ideas from my brain to your brain. And if you know how to do that effectively, you can control people.
Yeah, that's yes, you can. You can essentially manipulate them, but that's sort of the whole. I mean, manipulation sounds bad, but it is sort of convincing people about your vision.
Yeah, it's like Martin Luther King. I'm trying to convince you that like we should be equal, and like he tells this amazing speech. I have a dream. Like it's important to. My goal is to manipulate you, and I am manipulating you in a good way.
Mm-hmm. And that's okay, and that's literally business. When you think about switching from manipulation to having a partner, right? You talk about Joe already. You obviously have an amazing podcast with My First Million with Sean. Like, how do you think through finding a partner? Like, what's the importance of having a partner? How do you find a good partner? Like, you and I have both seen so many startups fail where the founders don't work out. And you also have had your own companies where you didn't have a founder or partner. What's your mental model on that front?
I didn't always do it well, but I do it well now. And what I like to do now is, a lot of times people, when it comes to business relationships, they should treat it like a marriage, which means when you're getting married to someone, not all the time, but at least what I did in my marriage was we dated for a period of time where it was casual and then it was like heavier and then heavier. And like there was a conversation that we had where it was like, this is going well. It appears as though your intention and my intention is both the same, which is to get married. What type of life do you want to have in 5 or 10 years? Like, do our values align? Like, what are you willing to do? What am I willing to do? What am I not willing to do? And you know what I mean? And so I did this with my wife and I did this with Joe, where with Joe and I, we mapped out, we were like, dude, we have a lot of love for each other. Like, I like working with you. You like working with me. Can you tell me in 5 and 10 years, what do you want to be living life? Like, what do you want your life to look like? How much net worth do you want? How much do you want to work? What do you want your daily schedule to look like? What values do you have? What are you not willing to do? And, and I actually wrote about this. You could find like Sam Parr, co-founder conversation. And we did it separately. And then we shared each other our work. And we're like, yeah, it doesn't appear as though there's any deal breakers. Like for him, Joe wants to work harder than me. Whereas I only want to work like 40 hours a week. And he was like, that's not a deal breaker for me. And I was like, all right, cool. He was like, I want to build a company without taking VC. And I was like, I don't want to take VC either. So that's great. But like, if you have a partner who's like, oh, I want to raise lots of money. And like another guy's like, I don't want to raise lots of money. It's like, well, that's a deal breaker. You guys you shouldn't do that. Or if it's like one person's like, dude, I'm willing to like do whatever it takes to win. And the other guy's like, I'm going to be incredibly honest. I'm not going to exaggerate. I'm not going to do this. And then you're like, well, there's not a mix here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or if it's, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I like to have super transparent, vulnerable, upfront conversations early on where it says like, here's my deal breaker. Here's not my deal breakers. And here's what success looks like to me. Are we willing to go the same route or not?
How often, like, I feel like a lot of founders don't do that. I mean, so in most of my co-founder relationships, I've done something similar. Not always. And I've had ones where literally the company kind of broke up because we needed to go raise your next round. It was very much a VC backed company, everything else. And my co-founder didn't want to raise. He was like, I don't want to raise. Like, and I was like, I didn't even know it, almost had to deal with that. So it led to.
Yeah, it's like two guys who join a band, and one guy's like, dude, I want to be like Lady Gaga and like, you know, Harry Styles, and I want to sell at arenas. Another guy's like, I want to be this indie guy that like plays in coffee shops. It's like you can't make both work.
Yep, 100%. And so like, do you like? Is there like a whole? So you just have like, do you write all this stuff down? It's a dating profile essentially, and like, is that like going on like literally going on long walks? Like I've done this with people, by the way, where I've done like we write down all these questions, we go review them together. We don't read beforehand. We say like, let's read it.
Yeah,
almost like look each other in the eyes, and like that's this story is about how you can fall in love with someone in like 10 minutes by asking them questions and just giving me a lot of eye contact.
Yeah, that's what I did. Was like we spent our own time reflecting because it's like hard. Not everyone knows what they want. And you have to be open to whatever someone wants to change as the years go on. But I think putting in that exercise is like really important, and having the courage to walk away if they don't align, because that will happen a lot. But like, you don't want someone to have bad expectations where it's like, look, I told you that I'm going to have dinner every night at 5:00 with my daughter. So don't be surprised, and I'm not going to feel guilty because I'm telling you before we even start. That's what's happening.
Yeah. And sometimes people don't want to hear that though, right? They just want to make it happen despite that fact. And they're like, they don't want it. So at least you being upfront helps.
You have to be upfront. Yeah. And maybe things will change, but I think it's important.
Do you recommend everyone get a co-founder?
I think partner? It's easier. I think I have a bunch of friends who have done it, but there's not that many businesses where there's not that many single businesses. There's a lot of like husband and spouses that have done it, where maybe the husband's the front man, but the wife is really behind him, basically a partner in crime. But I think it's pretty hard, but not impossible to do it on your own.
You do the hustle on your own, right? Did you have a partner with that, or that was?
I started it, and then later on I brought someone on, and then we parted ways. And it was less fun than what it is right now. Like, I like having a partner. I think it's possible. Do you have a partner right now?
No. So with Troy, I don't. So all my first three companies always had a partner. At Troy, I don't. I mean, like I've sort of our senior leadership team who I'm pretty close to. We speak really regularly. And also sort of my chief of staff who I kind of throw off a lot of crazy ideas to and sort of try to keep those just with him. But no sort of equal co-founder partner.
Yeah, I don't think you need it. I think it just depends a little bit on personalities. I think I just like, I don't like being alone. Like I like my wife to be around me at all times, and I like Joe to be around me. Yeah, I just don't like being alone. So I think it just depends on your personality. It's a lot to take in. It's pretty funny. I just reread The Silk Road, which is the story of American Kingpin, the story of the Silk Road. The guy Russell Ulbricht.
Yep, just got pardoned.
Yeah, and one of the reasons, among other reasons, but one of the main reasons he got caught was because he had a big mouth, and he like talked about what he was doing with all of his staff, and so they have it all on record. And he talked about his feelings, and it just shows that like even when your freedom is on the line, it's hard not to talk about this shit because it gets lonely.
Yeah, we're all sort of people at the end.
Yeah,
how to communicate. On that note, too, I mean, how do you feel about in-person versus remote, and how do you like play those out for your own businesses or your own life? Or what do you recommend any founders just in general?
I don't recommend anything because I think both can work. I started as a remote company. I wish I didn't start as a remote company, and we are now getting an office. So that's my actions are.
At the same time, you were able to make these successful without having an office. Although I remember
the Hustle had an office. The Hustle was not remote.
Yeah, no, it was in person in San Francisco, if I recall.
Yeah. We had offices in SF and Austin.
And so for Hampton, did it have to be remote because you kind of started it during COVID, or?
It was like at the tail end of COVID. I just thought that I think I was still in the honeymoon phase of work from home. I also think that I got caught up for a long time. I was like, isn't it archaic that for years we could only have hired people that live within a 30-mile radius? Like I thought that was like crazy. But then I was like, yeah, in person is just way faster.
Why is okay? Like this is, I don't want to get too deep on this because I have such strong opinions here, but like, why is it way faster? Like it might be faster, but the costs are also really high, right? So like obviously paying people New York salaries
It's
is
expensive,
higher than people anywhere else.
dude, and they bitch way more than anyone else.
Yep. And they got to commute, and like they're maybe not as healthy because they're doing this long commute. You're commuting in from Westport, Connecticut, all this other stuff. So like,
Yeah, it's a
there are
pain in the ass.
trade-offs, right?
There's trade-offs. I think that the reason I don't give advice is because I think, like I said, there's many ways to do it successfully. For every success that I can point to of doing it my way, you can find many more that are doing it the exact opposite. That's why I don't like giving advice. I think it's a personal preference. I think for me, I sold my company during COVID, and I remember like we were on a Zoom, and I was like, "All right, company sold," and everyone's like, "Yay!" on the Zoom, and I was like, "All right, laptop closed," and
I like, what I do.
yeah, I was like, "Dude, this is lame," and I kind of feel that way now, where Hampton's going really well, and I have staff who I don't know, and I'm like, "Dude, this sucks." Like, I don't know these kids, and like, they're usually because I like to work a lot. My only friends are like the company. And so I just sort of miss that camaraderie. But that said, I don't think you need it. I also think you develop camaraderie remotely.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But there's big trade-offs there. Speaking of that a little bit too, like what's your take sort of on community? Like obviously you built a company around community, so you think it's really important, but like, how do you go about maintaining that community, like building your network? Like what's the value of those pieces and keeping those relationships strong? Like given all the other constraints in your time every single day, how do you balance that? And what advice maybe would you give yourself as like a young entrepreneur?
Well, if you're young, like if you're in your 20s, like, you and I have been friends for, I think, 12 years now, I forget. And like the guy who we got introduced to, Chris Redlitz, he lives down the street from me.
Yeah, I know.
I'm with Chris like all the time. And so Chris is way older than you and I, but like you and I have buddies who we all have you might be a few years older than me, but like I moved to SF when I was 21, and all of my 21-year-old friends, like I think you owned a house when I was like still up and coming. So you were like,
I don't know if I owned a house then. I remember when we were all hanging out. Well, no, actually,
I think you had owned a home, and so I think you were more like aspirational for me, where I was like, oh, I would love to own a.
Say that, thank you.
I was like, I would love to own a home one day, but so my peers were more like poor, like me, when we were 21, and like we're just getting to the age now where a large cohort of us are now like hitting it.
Yeah,
and that feels awesome. And that feels so cool to develop these relationships with all of us when we're just kind of getting going. And so I spent a lot of time networking when I was like 21, 22 years old. Now I actually don't spend any time networking. I have my friends, and we joke in my house, but I say no new friends. I don't want any. I have the crew that I need. I don't need any more. And so I actually don't like to network. I like to just get to know the people that I know already deeper.
So I feel very similarly to you. I do worry sometimes personally that like I'm missing out on, not like fear of missing out, but it's like there are also all these relationships that like I've known people, I've been involved with people, but like I haven't kept those up. And it's at least I found it very easy, in not a really good way, with like COVID combined with parenthood, to let a lot of sort of friendships and relationships wither. And keeping that up I felt been difficult.
Yeah, I just let it go. It's just the trade-off.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I can't do it all. Yeah, and I just I just accept it, I guess.
So maybe on that note too, how do you maintain as someone who does work really hard, and it sounds like you kind of work less than maybe you used to when you were younger, but like
I would say that I don't know what work means. I
think good entrepreneurs say that.
Yeah, like I don't know. Like I think about what I'm doing 100% of the time. But like I won't sit in front of a computer for sure, not more than 40 hours a week.
How do you maintain that then with like family, like work-life balance in a sense, or work-life unity in a sense? Like how do you manage those two things, right? You have your family stuff, but you're also always thinking about work.
My wife doesn't work. And I basically, if I have to travel for work, I will only travel if she'll go with me.
I love that.
So
and bring your daughter as well, like everything.
Yeah. So like if for example, we're going to go on a trip on Thursday, because I met a guy. I did a podcast with a guy who's a billionaire, and he was seemed like a great dad. And I was like, can I come and hang out with you and just see how you like interact with your family? You're amazing. And he's like, yeah. I was like, all right, well, my family's coming. So it's like a networking hang, but like I would only go, or I have to go to another conference to speak at a conference. And whenever I get asked to speak at a conference, I forward it to Sarah. I go, do you want to go or not? And if she says yes, then we're in. You know what I mean? But if she says no, then I won't go.
That's a great, I mean, I'm actually about to embark. I basically didn't travel for almost 3 years for work at all. And I have 3 work trips coming up in the next few weeks. I'm like, oh man, it's been a lot. And like, I should just put that rule in place. Although my new rule is basically I don't travel unless like I'm speaking myself, because I'm just not going to just go to a random conference and just hang out. Because to your point, like I have enough friends and like I have so many other things that I can be doing. And this is always a trade-off. Like, do you meet people in person randomly, or do you like try to do it digitally to a wider audience?
Well, I don't do that. I don't speak at digital events. But what I will do is if I am asked to speak somewhere, it has to be in a place that I want to go see. And what I always do is I fly in. So I speak on day 1. And then while I'm at the event, I walk around with my wife because she's way more social than I am. And she's like real pretty, and all these like nerds will come and talk to her. And she'll be like, what's cool to see? And some of the times they're like, well, first of all, we only go to a place that we want to visit. So like last year or a couple years ago, we went to Paris to speak. And we speak on day 1. And then during the trip at the event, she'll be like, hey, we're here. And then we always stay for like 3 days after. And she's like, what's cool for us to see? And half the time someone will be like, oh, I live in Paris. Do you want to get dinner tomorrow night? Come to my house. And we're like, hell yeah, that sounds awesome. And then you always get into something like, I also know another guy. You call him, he'll show you this. So that's how we take on it. The majority of our vacations are that way, where it's like we have to go for this work thing, but we're going to stay days after. And during the work thing, we get into trouble. Like we find like some cool adventure.
It sounds so much fun, and it's probably the right way to do business travel in general too. And then so like thinking through kind of getting closer, I know we're getting close to the end, like what are, like, if you think through like other great entrepreneurs that you've invested in, worked with, everything else, or books that you've read about a ton of others, are there certain characteristics or certain people or like mentalities where you're like, yeah, dude, like that guy, like, you know, you have people like Jeff Bezos or Steve Jobs or Elon Musk, right? Like they have a certain mentality and kind of a way they're sort of famously known for how they run their businesses and their lives. Are there things that you think people should emulate or frankly avoid?
Yeah, I think that like a lot of the great guys are also bad guys. And I think that those bad behaviors, people will look at them and justify, I could behave this way because this person is that way and they're great. But there's a lot of examples of really successful people that are good fathers, good husbands, good employers, and you don't really hear about them because it's not as fun of a story. But like John Rockefeller, the richest man to ever live, amazing dad, amazing husband. People who worked for him, they loved him. He was so good. There's a lot of examples like that, but they're not nearly as exciting to read about.
Yeah, they don't create the crazy stories.
Yeah, so I like finding non-famous biographies, although John Rockefeller's is quite famous. But there's a lot of examples of like Kurt Kerkorian, who was a famous billionaire. A whole bunch of others where you read about him and you're like, oh, this guy's a great guy. Like he's like a really good person. He didn't lie, or he mostly didn't lie. And he was like, you know, not everyone's perfect, but he's like this person's mostly great.
Yeah. Like, and you mentioned him earlier. Like I don't think anyone would say like Warren Buffett's a complete a-hole or something. And like
his daughters would, but you can't always be perfect. I'm not like saying that everyone's perfect, but like he's an honest, straightforward business guy. That's for sure. I don't think he's a great husband and great dad, but they knew what they were getting into with him at least. But there's a lot of examples of like really good people. And so also like when I read about Elon, I think to myself, I will not trade places with you. Yeah. And so like when you read about these people, you have to be like, am I willing to pay the price? Or like Jeff Bezos getting divorced publicly. Fuck that. I would hate that. And I can't imagine what he has to go through. And I'm like, I'm not willing to pay the price. I'm not willing to have what you have. And it's not, yeah, like that some people I guess really love that power, or some people love the power or money or fame or whatever it is. But which is great, by the way. Like to be a great artist are also insane people. And I'm happy that there are people out there making this great art. And therefore, I have to accept that there are insane people.
Yep.
I just you have to know like what price you're willing to pay.
As an investor, do you try to find that insanity? Like if you're looking for, outsized returns, do you want that crazy?
Yeah. Like I have one investment in this company called Figure by this guy named Brett Adcock, and that's going to be $100 billion company or more. They're making like humanoid robots. I invested in their seed round. They're already multiple unicorn. And when I met him, I was like, "Oh, you're insane. You're absolutely insane." And he's like a good husband and he's a good dad. But I'd be like, "What happens if this goes bankrupt?" He's like, I don't care." Or he'll be like, he just like it says crazy shit. Like he took all of his money that he made from his last thing and he put it into this next company, and he like sleeps like a baby. And I'm like, "Oh, well, you're just
rolling it into the next, putting it all in black and hoping it does land."
Yeah, I'm like, you're just nuts. You have a high IQ and you're insane. Therefore, you probably are. It's probably going to work.
How often do you find people like that? Like, is that like a one in? Just like it's so hard to find just good like have a unicorn founder.
Yeah. There's another guy named Tyler Dank who started Beehive, and I didn't invest in his company, and I regret it because he's fucking insane. If I read his work, you read a lot of his writing. He's a crazy person, and I love freaks. Like, I want to buy tickets to every freak show. So, like, if I meet a freak, I am on board. Like, if you made a living gambling or are, like, one of the best in the world at a video game or, like, are amazing at some weird-ass hobby like magic, or you, like, built robots for fun. If you're just, like, a freak and a nerd, I love you.
Does it kind of go back to the stuff you said at the very beginning where it's like, you need to just not care? And you just gotta be like, I don't care. I'm gonna go do this because I'm passionate about it. And
Yes.
And like, I'm gonna bet it all on this because like it's all gonna be fine. Even if it doesn't work out, I'll find something new to go into next.
Yeah, you have to be like so logical that you're like. I mean, I guess there's a reason why a lot of really successful founders are on the spectrum, because they just have like weird ass emotions, or not many emotions, or they like they're like super logical or something like that. And I love those people. That's why I love San Francisco.
Yeah, it's
like I remember like looking at all my friends, and I'm like, dude, like everyone here is like special ed. All my best friends are. I'm like, does that mean I am also that, or am I just a weirdo for hanging out with all these guys?
No, you are, and I think you're being self-deprecating on this call, but like you actually are, right? You started all these businesses, and so many of them have been successful. You have a special knack that makes you different. That because you just don't care, because you can do your sort of pre-mortems and all these other things, like enables you to just say, screw it, I'm going to go do it and build it.
Which it wasn't cool in high school, by the way. Like I got made fun of so much, and I'm basically the same person that I was when I was 14, except now it's cool because I learned how to get in shape, and my weirdness has made me a lot of money. But when I was about 14, it was like, dude, you're a fucking freak.
I mean, I don't know too many successful founders who were like the cool kids in high school.
No, it's impossible. You don't. We're only doing this shit to make up for like being bullied when we were 18.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I was literally, I went to boarding school for high school, and we would be playing like StarCraft. Like all the nerds were playing StarCraft, like the art place, because it was the best computers were in the art building, and we'd be playing StarCraft, and it was freaking amazing. But like the cool kids were out like doing cool kid things, like smoking cigarettes in the quad or something, and I was like, no, dude, we're gonna play StarCraft, network StarCraft before like that was a real thing.
I met a guy who runs like a $50 million a year business, and he's only like 28, and he was like, he's single. He's a single Jewish guy, and he was like, I'm trying to meet a Jewish wife in New York, so I built this program that hacked Tinder, and I have this other phone that's running a simulator that clicks like I trained this program I like uploaded all the Jewish women who I think are attractive, and I trained it to know which photos of types of people that I look at, and it also cross-references with their LinkedIn to make sure that they're like smart and went to a good school, and then clicks likes, and then it automatically messages that I A/B test, and he like pulled out his like phone and I was like looking, I was like, oh yeah, this all tracks. Like I would expect you, who runs a $50 million a year business at the age of 28, to be doing this thing. Like that's exactly the behavior that I expected out of you. But had he just shown this like dating thing to a normal person, they'd be like, dude, you're like a nerd. Like, don't do this. Just be normal. But when you find these types of people, you have to embrace these like freakish behaviors, and that's what makes them amazing.
100%. Although I would say in some ways, a weird way, it might make it harder for him to find someone, but also,
oh yeah, he's doomed. It's a horrible way to meet someone. Yeah. He's not gonna meet anyone ever. But I was like, this is awesome. And by the way, it's so ineffective. And he's not going to meet anyone. He's going to be alone his whole life. But
maybe he'll find that special person who like loves it too and be like, this is nerdy and I love it. But that's hilarious. But also once again, like those are people like, I want to invest in you no matter what. Like you're freaking dope and like you're doing cool shit. Like even if you're hacking the side of your life. So I want to be conscious of our time. But like one question I always ask everyone when we end is like, if there's a single piece of advice that you could give to every entrepreneur out there to achieve excellence in however they define it, and boil it all down into that one thing, what is that one piece of advice you would try to give?
I firmly believe if you think you can or if you think you can't, you're probably right. I think that the world is built by normal people who just had the audacity to go and build this building, or to make a decision that a stop sign deserves to be on that part of the street, or some big institution like Harvard should exist and we should all buy into the rules that it's created. It was created by just an audacious person who likely wasn't significantly dumber or smarter than you, but they were significantly bolder. And you can become bold if you really, really want to.
Yeah, boldness is a great characteristic that everyone should share. Sam, it is a ton of fun to see you. It's been too long. Thank you for the time. I appreciate it. It is precious. So yeah, keep making it happen for all of us.
I appreciate you. Thank you for having me. Congratulations on launching the new thing.
Yeah, absolutely.